Well, in 1950, you know, this was 1947. I mean, nobody had ever heard of a guru. I mean, any kind of spiritual endeavor really was strange and very exotic.
But when did you both start talking to her about Bible, or when did she start talking to you about Bible?
Oh, you go.
Okay. I went home. I promised my parents that I would come home after Jake's Pillow, and I would go to college. I went to college for one semester, and that was not for me. And so I came to New York in 1948, and of course she was on tour and so forth and so on. And then, but I don't know how I got in touch with you or knew you were anyway. You know, I knew Lee and Malcolm.
It was through Lee.
Yeah.
Well, we knew each other at the Pillow, and then Lee, I stayed at Lee's, remember? And
Lee Larman, who was a costumer
Yes.
at Pillow, and then she lived in New York. But anyway, so I was in contact with Ella, and one day we had lunch and together, and we had finished lunch. And we were walking along 7th Avenue, and we hit 57th Street, right across the street from Carnegie Hall. We were on the west side, downtown corner. And there she was, because she used to eat at a place called Vim and Vigor.
Yeah.
I was there forever.
Yeah, I remember.
What?
I remember being. We were always there.
we always.
It was on the corner, 57th and 7th. And it was a health food store. And she ate there all the time. And she dragged me there a few times. But anyway, there I was with Ella. And we greeted her. We were so delighted to see her. And she was charming, charming, charming. And then she said to Ella, she said, when are you going to come and talked about, come to see me to talk about Baba? And you said, oh you know, whatever. And I don't know. And then Miss Crass flicked a switch. And, you know, it was really big time charm. And she looked at me and she said, Ella doesn't quite know what to make of Bob. What do you make of him? I started blubbering and because that was something I didn't want to have anything to do with. I mean, I loved her dear, and you know, I was terrified of her just like Bunty. And I wasn't 9. I just didn't want to have any, you know, that spiritual bit. What is that? I couldn't get hold of that at all. But I was so enchanted with her. There I was, and I turned beet red. I mean, I could feel the heat. And then she said very firmly, she said, you had better come and see me. And that was the hardest thing I ever did. One of the hardest things I ever did in my life was calling her up, making an appointment to talk about this, whatever it was. And I didn't know, I didn't have a clue. I was a Southern Bible Belt Methodist, for God's sakes. And I didn't like that. I didn't have to, you know, I had no use for that at all. My grandfather was a minister, for Christ's sakes. And anyway, I finally got the courage and went to see her. And she was absolutely, I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but I dreaded it, whatever it was. And she was just wonderful, and she was funny. And we always managed to laugh. Miss Crash, we had that in common. And I didn't have much in common with her, but that was one of them. And so that's how I was hooked. And she didn't, but she only told me that one story. That day, that first time I met her, she told me the story of, I don't know if this is written down anywhere, but she said that that I was to imagine a lake, and that the lake was so vast that you couldn't see the shore anywhere, and that the wind called Leha, which was the spirit of creation, and she said you can't explain it, you just have to accept it. This spirit of creation blows across the lake, and it causes ripples. And the ripples cause bubbles. And inside the bubble is a drop of water. And this is the awakening of consciousness, the soul's awakening to consciousness. And she said that millions and millions and millions and millions of lives it takes that this drop of water becomes more and more developed, like the human, like the person, until finally the bubble bursts and the drop of water realizes that it has been a part of the lake the whole time. It only thought it was a bubble. It only thought it was a drop. It was always a part of the lake. And she said that is called divine ground. And that's about all I know about philosophy, and she gave it to me the first day. But I do remember that. And I really, it's enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, I've never had it put that way before.
Never heard that before. She certainly didn't do that. Did she tell you that story? She didn't tell me that story.
No, I don't think she told me that story, to be very honest.
Like I said, she treated all of us differently.
I had to read the discourses and then go and tell it.
Really?
Yeah. The part about creation, then I had to go back and tell her in my own words.
Oh.
You didn't have to do that.
I probably wouldn't have come back in the beginning.
What about you?
You know what? Because I was a bit pretentious, and I was always kind of interested in thinking and everything. So she told me stories. She just told me stories.
Oh yeah, well,
How she
told
met
me.
Baba,
Oh yeah.
and what it was like living in India, and what would go up, with all the women on the hill, and the trips on the bus, and I just story after story after story.
Well, like it, we all got that, I think.
Yeah,
Didn't
to a
she?
point, not so much with me.
Oh,
That's
really?
because you were the two intellectual ones, obviously.
Well, she just told stories of, Baba, all those stories that she wrote down in the book.
Those, yes. Yes,
Right.
That's
true.
what she,
Yeah.
that's what and she told them over and over and over, we heard them. Except a couple of them, I remember distinctly, she only told me once.
Was that the link?
That one was very late.
Yeah.
That's when
Right.
she'd already moved down to Myrtle Beach.
She told me that before not that so much she was the link, I think, but about Baba sending her back to the West.
And saying that she
And
was his
saying
link.
that, Chanji was the first person to tell her.
Well, yeah.
And, but as our, and I think she told me about that when she was still in the city.
Well, I didn't hear it until she moved to Myrtle
Right.
Beach.
In fact, just time-wise, when she was telling me, it was, I believe you met Kennedy?
Yeah.
Oh, you danced in.
Yeah, I met him.
You met him.
Yeah.
And she saw that as very significant. And she also saw,
Oh, well, yes,
you know,
those
she
stories
sat
that
next
she
to
told about
Marshall.
when she was
Right.
sitting with General Marshall
Right, yeah.
before the Marshall Plan. No, that was, she talked about that Baba's influence over the world and how he used people.
Yeah, you used to.
It had nothing to do with us at all. It was just we were useful. And one of them was, she was in Ballet Theater, and I don't know if you all, any of you remember the Marshall Plan.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, and apparently it was up before Congress at the time or something. And she sat in the same box with General Marshall. And she saw that as, and then you remember Delia. How did she tie that in? That Delia, who was Jewish, went to Israel after the war, and then when she came back, it all blew up. You know, all the 1947 war and everything like that. And she illustrated the fact that because Delia went and Baba did his work through her.
I think she didn't tell the story, which I've always thought was the most amazing story, of just before D-Day.
Oh.
You know,
yeah.
that was an amazing story, and the cat,
Yeah, the cat.
Yeah.
to put out the cat. And then later on, and I think I'm correct, I was at Myrtle Beach and I was talking, and Jeff Wolverton, I told that story. And Jeff Wolverton told me that Viola Farber had been there.
Oh, yeah.
And she had, when they celebrated D-Day, I don't know, years and years later, she knew people who were members of the French underground.
You can't tell that, they don't know the story.
Yeah, tell the story.
Oh,
You have to tell the story first.
well, I'll see if I can tell it, but you'll have to help me with it.
Oh, don't worry, I'm ready.
Well, actually, when Miss Clash, Baba would give everyone tasks. And she loved animals, but she was often responsible for animals. And there was a cat.
Someone gave Baba a cat, a Siamese cat, a purebred Siamese cat. And they gave Baba, and with it, a palace this cat had lived in. It was built especially for the cat.
Right.
Please proceed.
So anyway, Miss Clash, she had a very kind heart. And one day Baba came, and it was, D-Day was June 9th.
Oh, come on, Ray, you're
June
jumping.
6th.
I'm going to
June
tell this
6th.
story.
No, you're not.
That's not. Because this palace, this cat wouldn't come out. This cat had been put in there as a kitten, and the cat would not come out. And Baba gave her the job, you must normalize that cat so that that cat can face the world the way it should. And it took her many, many months. You know, she teased it with food and things like that. And then eventually she had to take the whole palace and carry it out into outdoors and into the fields in order to get the cat.
Right.
Because the cat reverted immediately, went back and wouldn't come out. The cat's name was Geisha, by the way.
Right. Thank you.
Now, if you behave yourself,
All
you can go there.
Okay. So, anyway, Baba
Well,
comes-
eventually she got it out.
she did.
And it did live a normal
And
life.
it did.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, historically, I have to do it historically. This was at a time when the Allied forces were all gathered to go across the channel. And one night, there was a terrible, terrible storm.
It was monsoon, elephant rain.
Right. But also, interestingly enough, the storm, there was a great storm too.
Yeah.
For the forces, they had planned to go out, and Eisenhower and Churchill.
Oh, I thought you were talking about India.
I'm talking about both. I mean, I'm trying to put it into context.
Well, the storm in both
Of the
places.
storm in both
Yeah,
places.
okay. But at the time, nobody knew
Well, I
that.
know, but I'm trying to draw a picture.
Well, you have to change your crayons.
No, hear me out.
Well, I'm trying.
Okay, so anyway, this is sort of the whole picture. So anyway, Baba comes up on the hill, and it's a great storm, and he asks her,
He didn't ask
he
her.
tells her, okay, thank you, to put the cat out. And she said, this is what she told me. She said, oh, Baba, you know, she told me too, that she always obeyed him implicitly. I remember when, and I'm going to digress a minute, but when she was much, much older, and I asked her, did she ever not do what Baba said? Oh, did she always obey him? And she said, absolutely. But she asked him, because she was felt for the cat, and he left. He said that was all right. Then he comes up the next.
Well, you didn't say what you're thinking in your mind, but you did. I mean, I know the story, but
What?
you didn't say what it was that was all right.
Well, that she didn't have to put the cat out.
Well, she begged him.
Yes.
She said, oh, Baba, I can't put this poor cat. I've just now normalized it. It's just gotten used to the, staying out of the
And, yeah.
cage. And I can't put it, it's raining and so. And she said, oh, okay.
So then, the next night, he comes up, and she described him,
It's raining again.
and it's raining again.
It's a storm again.
But there was something about him that there was this, I don't know what, I couldn't even use the term. Wait a minute.
No, you missed it.
No, I
You
didn't.
passed out.
I didn't.
Because he said, put the cat out.
But you don't give me time to say it.
But you're talking ahead.
No, I know.
And that's when he grew to be 12 feet
No,
tall.
but the way he said it, to put the cat out, she said, I did not, she just put it out.
Oh,
Well, that
no.
was- no.
Yeah.
She
No.
gave him the same argument.
So-
She said, oh, Bob, and he said then. See, you don't have this right. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So it was 3 nights. It was 3
He
nights.
said, he came and he said, put the cat out. And she said, oh, but Papa, it's still raining. It's just like that. And he said, and she said then that he grew about 12 feet tall. And he said, is it my cat or your cat? And she said, oh, it's your cat, Bob.
And she
She
put
threw
it
it out
out.
the window.
Right.
She threw it out the window.
Well, she put it out.
She threw it out the window. Because he so terrified her.
Right.
That was,
Yes,
And-
right.
right. And she didn't actually disobey him. She just
I
argued
didn't
with
say
him.
she did.
No. I know.
She argued with him, but
Yeah.
he said that it's all right the first night.
Yeah, he let her
didn't-
get
yeah.
away with it, yeah.
But when
Can I
she,
just ask you, sorry,
right,
what it was like meeting Baba?
Punchline to the story. It's a good one.
So you put the cat
Well,
out.
that's
With the
a-
cat
no, he put, I mean,
She
she
put
put
the
the
cat
cat
out.
out. She put the cat out. And then, I didn't remember the specificity of saying he would, I just remember her saying that the power was so great, his power, that she was, and she herself was a very powerful woman, but his power was overwhelming, and that's all.
Well, yes, she told me that rarely, she saw many aspects of Baba. Most of his, I experienced his love, really. But she said that was one time that he showed her power.
Just
And
incredible.
she saw him. you
And
know.
what was the date of this
Huh?
happening?
Oh, yeah.
Well, D-Day was.
Now get this right, Ellen.
Right, okay, no.
June 6th, June 3rd.
It was June 6th. So it was the night, the first time he came up was the night before.
But
I
the
thought
same
it
thing
was
was
3
happening
nights.
to Eisenhower.
I thought it was 3 nights.
It was
Well,
raining,
I thought
it
it
was
was
raining
2
for 3
nights.
nights.
I
Well, I
thought
don't
it
know.
was 3, but
But he
I don't
decided to
know.
go when it was raining.
Yeah. Each
You know,
time
even
they
though
were
it was-
going to attack and they couldn't
Yeah,
because of
there
the
was
weather.
two, no,
Yeah.
there
Well,
were 2
Eisenhower
nights when
argued with
I
Churchill
thought it was
yeah.
because Churchill was the supreme commander, and then Eisenhower said, "We can't go. You know,
Yeah.
we'll lose too many men and so forth and so."
But when
So,
But
when
that
she
was
threw
2
the-
nights.
When she threw the cat out, that was the night they went.
So
well,
There was a
Churchill,
night they
what was their
Churchill
code
said
phrase?
no. Eisenhower argued with him the second night, and Churchill said, "No, you have to go."
Then you had to go.
No, that's not, I heard an interview with Eisenhower recently, an old interview where he told the story that it was 1 or 2 nights, but it was raining, he said, I can't
That
go.
was 2 nights.
Yeah,
right. That
whatever it
is
was, whatever, 2 or 3 nights, whatever. And then on June 6th, he said he decided in a split second, I have to go. You know, even though it's raining. He said he called in the meteorologist said it will be raining,
Yeah.
but there'll be a little lull. And he said, I gotta believe him, I have to go or everything will be wasted.
Right.
I can't think about it, I gotta
There was no.
But then there's the piece about what the code was to
Oh,
begin
yeah.
the attack.
Oh, thank you. So anyway.
And you have to tell that Viola Farber, who was a dancer, had a big connection with France. She had been teaching there for many, many, many years,
Okay.
and all over the place.
But what I'm just saying is that she knew people from the French resistance. And while she was there was a celebration about D-Day. And one of the most amazing things about the French resistance is that they had codes to give messages, about what was going, would occur from England. And they had, I read about all these codes, they were amazing. But in the invasion of D-Day, the code that was sent to the French resistance was, put the cat out.
No,
Oh, wow.
excuse me.
But,
The code was for them to know that the invasion was happening.
that's right,
The code was, the cat is out of the bag.
you're right.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I told you, I'm ready. Huh?
Whatever happened to the cat?
Oh, that's what I asked. And Miss Cass said, oh, she found a niche someplace, a hole in the wall. And she was fine.
I never heard that part about Viola before.
Yeah.
She must have been a teenager because I was over there at that time.
Who?
Me.
Who was a teenager?
Viola.
Oh, no,
Oh,
no,
no, no,
This
this
was
was
when they were
after.
celebrating D-Day, something like,
Oh, the 40th anniversary.
Something
Oh,
like that.
I see. I
And
didn't
she
follow
was
that.
And
over there.
she was teaching
Yeah.
over there.
Oh, I see.
And,
I get it.
oh,
Okay.
sure, it was happened in the 80s, didn't
It
it?
was in the 80s.
Yeah, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Right.
Otherwise it didn't.
Yeah, I could see where. It's a wonderful story. I mean, it's just
Yeah, that's one of the
amazing.
best, I think.
And I think one of the most convincing to me,
Mm.
simply because of the whole historical.
And of course, she said, I don't say that had anything to do. You can draw your own conclusion. But it was coincidental.
When did you all meet, Barbara? 56 for you, and what was it,
52.
for you?
Tex was
And
early.
52.
okay.
Oh, you were in 52 as well.
Yeah, I went down with Latin Davis.
Oh. Why did she go? She was the one that, I didn't have any money and she offered to pay my bus fare down
Oh,
there.
she
Really?
did.
And I couldn't understand it because I didn't think she had any interest in Barbara, or which I guess she did.
She did. Because
I didn't know she went there.
we flew down together and another young woman from Virginia. And we went to Charlotte, and then we rented a car. And we were really late. I mean, somehow we got to Myrtle Beach. Oh my, it was too late.
You must tell, that was the day. Baba had one day
Oh,
that
to
he
see
saw
people.
people.
Yeah.
Only one day. At the 17th of May?
I don't remember the date exactly. But we had to, and we were supposed to be there at a certain time, and we got there late. It was dark, it was around 9, and
Oh, way past.
yeah, way past. And it was so amazing because Kitty, I mean, we were told pretty firmly there was no place, that there was really no place. And Kitty found for us a place to stay.
Now, wait a minute. Was this the day you were supposed to have met Baba? Or
No,
the day
it was the day before. And,
It would help if you told us.
Oh, okay. Well, we spent the night, so we got there the day
Okay,
before. And, but we got there late. We were supposed to have gotten there at a certain time. And I remember that really every place was filled. And Kitty literally found what was almost like a broom closet for us to stay. It was wonderful. And then I met him the next day.
But that's when you were trying to...
The Texas.
No,
That was
no. We weren't in the air yet. Because, but you know, he changed the date. Remember that he made a certain date. He said it was the 18th. And we made our arrangements with Rudolph Bing. And then Baba changed it and said, no, you have to be here the 17th. And that's when we had to ask permission to see him, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's how I got there. And I met him, it was in the barn. And for me, it was, I mean, I have to be very honest with you. I didn't have any unusual emotional experience. I really did not. I just remember being somewhat confused, and after meeting him, I'm a country girl, so I had to go. I had to get out away from everything and just walk. I remember stumbling through the woods, and I was told later that I wasn't supposed to do that because of snakes. But I really totally was just confused. And then my friend Myrna and I were asked to come have tea with the women. And there were Mira and Mani and Gohar and Meru. And strangely enough, meeting them, I had never seen such gentleness. I mean, I'd never seen such gentleness. And there was a beautiful lightness to them. And my friend Myrna she was a wonderful woman, wonderful dancer. And I remember she was very sad. I just was confused, but Myrna was deeply sad because she also did not have any deep sort of, and she had hoped for one. And
Tell that, you know, what happened when she went to meet Baba.
oh,
And why?
well, several things happened.
Well, yes.
She brought her fiance, and he was rude to Baba. And then Baba did he ask her what was it,
Yes,
to
he
sit
said,
down? Or she didn't?
like her fiance was very rude to Baba. And Miss Kress said, well, it was very, very rare that, you know, all the people that people would not like it or this or that, but very few people were ever actually rude to him. But this man was. And then he left
Yes.
the room.
I
But
think he
Myrna
asked him-
stayed. Yes, he said.
Yeah.
And then he told Myrna to sit down.
Right.
And Myrna felt she was very upset about her fiance. And she felt she couldn't sit down in his presence.
And also, I think I don't know why she didn't have her glasses on and she couldn't see so well.
Well, she couldn't see him, sir. That's
Yeah,
true.
it
She's
is-
very bad.
She
bad
had
eyes.
just terrible eyesight. But she told the story
But he asked her to sit down 3
and
times,
she didn't.
and she didn't do it.
So anyway, we were having this tea with these gentlemen. I've never seen such gentleness and really such beauty. I mean, Mira's beauty was startling. And Myrna told this story. And Mira was touched. And so Mira went to Baba on her behalf, and Miss Christ told me that Baba never refused Mira anything. And he told Mira, and again, you correct me for specificity, that Myrna, he would give to Myrna, of all of those who were there, the knowledge of him.
No, sorry. He said, Mira was very upset that Myrna was so upset.
Yes.
And she spoke to Baba about it. I don't think she asked him for anything. She just told the lovely girl and everything. And Baba said, don't worry. In the end, I will give her more than anyone who came today.
That day. Yeah. And I knew Myrna and I were deep and close friends. And Myrna's life was about as hard as anybody's life can imagine. Her husband was a very dominant, patriarchal, powerful, also brilliant man, very scornful sometimes.
He was a brute.
But,
Is that the same one with the fiance?
The same person? The one who was rude?
the man who was rude,
Yeah.
Myrna's fiance, Myrna married him.
Okay.
And she actually, for a while, he was so powerful, went away from Bob and Miss Christ. I mean, he was amazingly powerful. And, well, I just can't tell you the awful times she ended up. She had breast cancer, and it was a wonderful thing to me anyway that I one day went to see her after she had cancer, and Miss Krask had told us to learn the Master's Prayer and the Prayer of Repentance. And I remember, I'm not great on memory, but every day I would iron and I would try to remember it. And I went over to see Myrna, and we went out in the yard and we were sitting down, and she would ask me about, the dances and Miss Krask, because Miss Krask had stopped. Miss Krask Bob was too much for her to take. And so she asked me, and I said to her, Myrna, Myrna, I told her a little bit, and I said, but Miss Krask told us to learn these prayers. And it was the most amazing thing. I said, and Myrna said, tell me them. And I really didn't think I had memorized them. And I memorized, I just said Master's Prayer and the Prayer of Repentance. And Myrna was so still and so quiet, and then the tears. And then after that, she told me that she said it every day. And then she became she really was a terrible, complete mastectomy. But after 5 years, she said we will go to Myrtle Beach. She asked me if I would go to Myrtle Beach with her to celebrate the 5 years. And she had been very caught up in many things and sometimes very much in herself. And when we went, and Viola went, and Alexandra went, and I went, and some of Myrna's children, and we drove down there. And I noted something quite amazing about Myrna, that she had developed this incredible capacity when she talked about people of giving of self. I mean, it was amazing. You know those things when you know people who can give more than themselves, more than ego. And Myrna And that whole time she was there, she fasted. She'd go down to the boathouse and she'd be very quiet. And this I remember, the last night, we all would love to see Miss Christ, but we were, in my whole life, I never, ever saw her without asking her permission to see her. And I remember we went that night. It was the last night we were there, and we were in the meeting house there. And Miss Crask, Myrna left early, and Miss Crask, I was so amazed, asked me where Myrna was. And I late, and I found Myrna later, but it was too late, and I think we left the next morning. But we got back, and it had been a celebration because she was through with cancer. And then 3 months, I guess we were there in April, and in June, Myrna wrote me a letter and said that the cancer had spread to the thyroid and it had metastasized. And I remember I told Miss Crask, and her beauty of character in those last years, those last months, weeks of terrible, terrible suffering. The day she died, she was counseling a neighbor. And I've always felt, you don't know so many things, but I've always had that incredible beauty of character that stayed throughout all that unbelievable pain. That somehow he had, maybe it was just the beginning of what she would know, but I felt it was, what can I tell you? It was just so amazing. Anyway, that's the story of Mona and her love. And I think love shows itself in so many, manifests itself in so many ways that it doesn't. But it was a beautiful thing. Anyway.
Bunty, what was your first encounter with Baba like?
Well, when I physically met him?
Yeah. Okay.
I met him at LaGuardia when he came over in '56. And like Ella, I had no particular response. The only thing I could think of was he was much smaller than I was expecting, which was kind of, I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess something more than normal size.
Don't be tall.
Right, but he was normal size. And I can remember he walked out, and this was what Miss Crask said afterwards, but I didn't remember. He looked at her, and he pointed at me, and then looked back at her. And I think that was something to do with the fact that when I was about 12, she had shown him a photograph of me. And that was the only thing I could think of, that there was that connection with pointing. And she said I was crying at the time, but she was always saying I was crying. Well, of course I was crying most of the time. But I don't remember crying then, but maybe I was. But I didn't notice it. But then later when I met him properly, with the hug and all that personal thing at the hotel, that was very different. Then I did have a kind of emotional reaction to the whole thing that was very, very strong. But I couldn't possibly describe it really, except it was like, I don't know, if you've been in a plane and your ears get stopped up, that feeling? Like everything, because you can't hear, everything kind of disappears. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like that. And it was just Baba, but everything else had gone.
Like in the Indian movie, right? a soft focus filter.
Yeah, probably like that, yeah. How old was I? Oh, I was so grown up by then. That was, in New York. So that was 56.
Yeah.
56.
It was in July.
Because I was,
I don't think it was June. Was it July? I don't remember.
oh, I don't remember.
Was it at the Delmonico?
Yeah,
No,
Delmonico.
the
No, no,
Delmonico.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
At
Delmonico.
the, well, at the airport. it
Oh, no,
wasn't.
but
No,
I
I've
mean,
got,
when
no,
was
I
at the
finished
Delmonico?
with the
Yeah,
airport.
but he embraced you at the airport.
He did?
I was standing next
Yeah.
right? I was standing, and I remember distinctly, he embraced you, and it spilled over on me.
Really?
This immense wave of love.
Well, you
He embraced her. It wasn't a long one. It was a very sort of cursory.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did that to 2 or 3 people. You
And I didn't even notice.
And it spilled over on me. It was fantastic.
You got the reaction?
Yeah, I got it.
You never thanked me for that.
Oh, I'll thank you now. Is it okay? Yeah, it's a little late, but never mind.
Were you at all upset or disappointed when you didn't have an initial response to seeing him? Were you?
Not really. It was just a kind of blank, like, nothing.
You
I mean, I
hadn't gone
was
down
still
with
excited because I was seeing him,
Mhm.
Obviously. But I don't remember feeling disappointed.
And why didn't you see him in 52?
That was my fault entirely. I mean, I could have, only maybe I wasn't supposed to, I like to think that. But I'd been out of work for a long time because of union regulations and so forth and so on. And I had no money left, and I had just signed a contract for a summer stock job. And I didn't want to break my contract because I didn't know how I was going to live. So I didn't. But of course, I suppose I could have. So I had to wait until 56. But it got made up for later in various ways. So it was all right.
Weren't you offered the part you really wanted in 56 and you
In
had to turn down?
56, yeah, that was kind of the reversal. I was finally, that was at the Delmonico. I got a telegram from Agnes DeMille, who you may or may not know, but anyway, she's a choreographer, offering me the lead part in one of her ballets, and they were going to go to Russia for the first time.
Rodeo, right?
Rodeo. And this was what I really wanted to do, but I didn't. And Tex told me later that she was very upset, and that she thought I had a rich lover in the South. Which was true.
Well, Agnes had a taste for the dramatic anyway.
No, I don't know that she probably ever understood that whole thing.
Well, she never, well, no, don't you remember she told you that I was deeply religious?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you told me.
Oh, I did?
That she said that. Because, you see, I had told her when we were doing the movie of Oklahoma, that was 54. And Baba had talked about, having this sahabas, this men's sahabas. And he talked it would be in May, then it would be in September, and then it would be, and he did that all the time, changing, hopping around. And I wanted to do the movie because, I don't know, I saw, a new career. And they brought me out. I didn't have to pay my fare out. And then Baba kept changing the date, and this and that and the other, and then finally he solidified the dates. And I said, he'll be changing, so I can do this job. and get all this money and become famous. And, I had, but then, of course, he didn't change the date, and it was very solidified. We had to be there at a certain time. This was the men 3 incredible weeks. And so I went to Agnes, and she knew Miss Crask, and she knew about Baba, because she knew Miss Crask before Miss Crask went to India, in England.
Right.
So she knew about it. And I told her, and that what I wanted to, that I was sorry we hadn't started filming yet. We were still just rehearsing. So, and in Hollywood, in contrast to a Broadway contract, you could just quit. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could, you'd give 2 weeks notice and you could leave. You can do that on Broadway. But anyway, so I could do that. And she said, and I told her the whole, and she asked me some questions. And then she said, of course you must go. Well, I nearly fell over. So I went and I started getting all my act together. But there was one point, there was an Indian consulate in Los Angeles. You had to appear at the consulate in person to sign to get your visa. So I was going to, this date was set, but I couldn't be at in downtown Los Angeles at 9 o'clock and be at Studio City at the same time. So I had to ask Agnes for permission to come in to rehearsal late. So I called her and I told her the whole thing, that I had to be there and this and that and the other. And there was this silence at the end, on the other end of the phone. And she said, do you mean to tell me you're going to go through with this? And I said, why, yes. And she said, I never heard of anything so ungrateful. Here, Rogers and Hammerstein has brought you out to California. You think I was singing Laurie or something. Anyway, and she said, if you persist, I'll see to it that you never work again. Now, Agnes was powerful. She wasn't that powerful, but that is not a good thing to hear from Agnes DeMille, who at one point had 3 hit shows on Broadway at once. And and Baba had said very clearly, you can come if you don't endanger your job. Well, I sweated over that, and I decided, well, that really is endangering my job. Every job ends. But anyway, so how did I get started on that story?
I don't know.
You said something.
I did?
Yeah.
Deeply religious.
No, you were talking,
Oh,
you were saying,
You're talking about hugging,
she gave up
Yeah.
Rodeo.
Bunty. And
No, it
we
was
did
when I gave up the job in Rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
And then Agnes told you were deeply religious.
Yeah.
In my, huh?
I have a question. Did any of you dance at the barn?
What?
Yeah.
Did you dance?
Yeah.
When he was there at the barn?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Amazing. It was amazing in a lot of ways because it was very difficult. Wouldn't you say it was very difficult?
Yes, it was very difficult.
Because we couldn't dance on the floor for one thing. It was too slippery. That was the beginning part. And Elizabeth Patterson said we could strip the floor, but only if it was put back together again the following day. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're
anywhere.
quite right. But we went to Kitty.
Kitty?
Actually,
It was
Kitty,
Kitty.
yeah.
Okay. Then you couldn't walk on the sand and then go and practice in the barn because of the sand. and the music was all wrong that we taped, and Donald had to run into Myrtle Beach and do something. I don't know what he did.
Yeah, I forgot that.
And one of the
forgot what it
girls
was.
sprained her ankle.
Because Donald Mahler, who was working in Canada at the time, he didn't have anything to present.
Yeah, he was late.
And he
getting-
hadn't planned to come anyway.
Right.
But there were 11 of us all together. Remember?
Yeah, we had a
A
quite a program.
station wagon full.
right.
And we had broken up into groups. Because when we danced for him in 1956, it was so, talk about dreary.
That was in San Francisco?
Yeah, the only good part about that is that picture.
Yeah.
That's the only good part.
Yeah, that crazy Glenn's got in his little cave. Anyway,
His iPod.
there's that picture that
It's the cover of the movie
with
now.
Miss Crask kneeling in front of Baba and
And
Bunty's
we're around.
on
Mir Baba's
his-
Grace. It's
Huh?
on the cover of Mir Baba's Grace, the video.
What?
It's on a cover of a video now.
Oh, is it?
And it's also seen in the movie.
Huh?
It's also seen in the movie, the picture.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've seen it in the movies. But that's the best thing that happened, you're right. Oh, it was such a drill.
Oh, that was a
We didn't
terrible-
have any music, and we had to hum and clap, and it was really dismal.
We didn't know we were going to have to do it. Well, Miss Christ told us when we were in Myrtle Beach, that was before we got to San Francisco, that he would probably ask us to do something and we'd better think of something.
Well, then he called us, remember,
Yeah.
early in the morning, down in Myrtle Beach. I'll never forget the way I felt when he was talking about, did you sleep well, and how this and that and the other, and then suddenly he turned to us, and he said, dance for me. I don't know, I turned stone immediately. I learned. I became totally paralyzed. And then he said, okay, yeah, dance for me on Wednesday. And this was like Monday or Sunday or something like that. So we got up very early in the morning and went down to the beach and practiced. I mean, nothing but salvage that. Anyway, and then of course Wednesday came and he didn't say a word. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, on, and then we went to Washington and we went to Los Angeles. This is weeks, or 10 days, something like that.
Yeah.
And then finally we got to San Francisco, and I thought we were off the hook. Didn't you?
I hope we were.
But we did keep practicing this awful program. And then suddenly one day, he said, he looked at us. We were always in a clump, like we were strung together at the navel or something. We always stuck together. Well, it was kind of a hopeless crowd, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we were not the most popular group.
No. Well, there were the Sufis, of course, who didn't bother mixing with anybody. And then everybody else was at least middle-aged or over. And we were still young then, if you can imagine it. And, but anyway, he turned to us and said, you will dance for me tomorrow in this room. This room. How big was it? Not as big as this.
I don't remember the size.
Anyway, it was small.
Yeah.
And so...
There was another thing about that. He said nobody was to come in and watch except the Mandalay.
No, I asked him about that.
The people came in. Remember?
No, I'll tell the story.
Yes.
Aren't you glad I'm here?
Yes.
No, we talked about it. We said, if everybody who's here comes in, we won't have room to dance. So I went to Baba and I asked him if it was all right if we danced, if we had the mandali and Miss Crask and Kitty and Elizabeth and Billy Eden and the mandolin. If we could dance for that, for him and them, if that was all right. And he said, fine. He had a way of doing it. Remember that? That gesture was so final. I mean, it was the end of the world. You couldn't have changed. So that was, again, that increased our popularity a lot. And then when we were getting ready, a certain lady walked in. And we really were ready to start. And she said, and this is the way it happened. She said, Baba, I have all of these people waiting to meet you. And you're locked up in this room with these, And that's really true. And Baba said, never mind. Just go into the hall and relax, be quiet. So she did. Only we get ready again, in she comes again. And he said, go into the hall and be quiet. 3 times. And the 3rd time, Baba said, if you don't go into the hall and be quiet, Baba is going to leave this place. And I knew he meant America. Right? Or do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, well, he did it. I mean, I didn't make that up. And she did, finally. She did stay. But it's incredible that Baba brings these things up in people. I mean, the nerve. I mean, I was paralyzed when she came in and did that.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, how on earth can you, But
there were other things like that. Do you remember that time he called us to, just the dancers, to the lagoon cabin?
Yes, oh yes.
And that was, and we were all sitting there, and he was asking us as usual, did we sleep well, were we happy, and so forth and so on. And then he wanted us all just to be quiet and sit there with him. And we were all sitting there being quiet and being very happy, and some woman had come in with us. This was supposed to be just the dancers. And she said, Baba, when are you going to let me come to India to be with you? And he just went, that gesture again.
Yeah. And threw us out, all of us.
Threw all of us out.
And we were really cheated out of a fabulous moment. Because, and somebody I met, I've forgotten who it was, but remember when we would go, he would call different groups into the lagoon cabin. And we sat across the road where the meeting, that little, whatever that screened-in place is. Remember? And we would just wait to be called or not be called. And it happened one way or the other. But somebody told me, who was it? But anyway, that that was not, the dancers, he would call the dancers in. And we would all go in. And they sat over there. And this person was always sitting over there, not with us. And she said that everybody wondered what was going on in the lagoon cabin because all this laughing and carrying on was going on in the lagoon cabin when he called the dancers in, which is true. He never gave us spiritual lectures or anything. And of course, he and Miss Krask, who had this wit as sharp as a ice pick. She and Baba had this repartee between them and this fabulous, camaraderie kind of thing. Those were wonderful. And he did, we laughed a lot in there.
Yeah.
It was nice, lovely.
Yeah.
And then, I never thought of it, but they're sitting across the road wondering what the hell is going on. But I think we were lucky, frankly, very lucky.
We were lucky.
That we had that instead of discourses.
When you did your first dance without the music for him, can you
That was
describe
in San Francisco. And then, of course, in '58, when he was coming, we thought we were going to, we're not going to get caught with our drawers down this time. So we broke up into sections of people. And you took care of so many of them, you know.
Well, I did that ballet, which
Yeah.
took care of a lot of people.
Yeah, the ones who didn't have anything to do. And,
What was the ballet then?
It was patineur. It was a skating ballet, I think.
yeah, we had to call it the skating party.
Yeah, because
Remember?
people wouldn't know what it was.
Well, Miss Kress said we would be Ashton.
Oh, Ashton
Could
was
sue us.
suicide. Yeah, like he's going to hear. So we're dancing He'd know we were dancing in the barn outside.
So we had.
That was a good program.
That was a good program.
Yeah, that was a good
And it was hard, but it was a good program. And what we did, when we got permission, we used turpentine. Nobody could come near the barn with a cigarette because we scrubbed the floor with turpentine, trying to get rid of the wax. And I think it helped.
But when did you put it back together again?
The day after.
But that wasn't me. I wasn't doing that.
You weren't?
I don't think so.
How'd you get out of it?
But it worked anyway. It was all put back together.
Oh yeah, we polished it. That's the one that when sort of Jean went into a stupor. Remember? We had to hold him by the hand. He would walk. I said, no, Jean, this is the bridge, that's the lake. You come in. Because he was slow.
Well, I was like that too. I walked all the way to the beach and walked into the sea. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Is that the year when you got Baba asked you to all find a seesaw for Mara?
Oh no, that was a different time.
It was a different day. Was it the same that year?
I don't remember.
I think it was that year, probably. But that was interesting because I was watching Peter's video again, and he had a different thing from me. Baba asked us to go and look on the beach for any unusual, particularly interesting shell that we could take back to Mira. And Peter apparently looked and found something that he thought was really good. It was a sand dollar. And he showed it to Baba, and Baba just went. Whereas my reaction was, I'm looking everywhere, and I couldn't find anything I thought was good enough, so I didn't do anything. But that's different personalities, you know.
Yeah. Mine was even worse.
What did you do?
I handed it to him and he took it and he looked.
Yeah, but you were smarter than I was. I could have picked up anything and taken it to him, and I would have at least given him something.
Yeah, but
You know what I mean?
you know how you felt after that? When he would,
Well, he threw it away, yeah, that's true.
I mean, in disgust.
When did you all end up at Agnes at Barron's, Marymount, and then there was a story with you cutting peaches?
Oh, the fruit salad. Do you remember that?
What?
That was
You got there early so you could see Baba?
56. That was after, that's when we were in
Oh,
LA.
yeah.
Yeah, Baba wanted to see Marymount because he'd never seen it. And it was some way away from LA, so we had to drive. We thought we'd get there early. We thought we were being really smart. We'd get there early and we'd see Baba before anybody else did. You know, there was a certain time that we were supposed to be there, so we got there about an hour early. And Agnes Barron was delighted, and she said, good, you can make the fruit salad for lunch. So we're all in the kitchen chopping up fruit and everything, and Baba comes and disappears into his house, and we never saw him at all. But things like that happened all the time. You got outsmarted.
What was Baba's response to your first dance performance and your second?
Oh, he enjoyed it all, but I think,
Both of them.
yeah. I think he enjoys any kind of performance. I mean, he did.
I think so, because so many of his early disciples were, in the theater,
Right.
and they gave performances all the time for him.
But also when the men put on a show for him, and he loved that. Remember?
Oh yeah, the alligator, the alligator club.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And who did they put in? He dressed him up as a baby and wheeled him in a wheelbarrow. I think it was Dana Field, wasn't it?
Dana Field, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Was Miss Krask at all involved in you setting up your dance performances? Did you ask her to look at any rehearsals, or did she give
Well,
you any
I have a
feedback?
photograph. Remember Zebra turned her ankle?
Yeah.
And I have a photograph. Miss Krask is real brother before the performance.
Yeah, I have that picture too.
Yeah, I think maybe you
Massaging,
should. Yeah.
maybe I don't know. Massaging. But also she taught Marie that dance, that Russian peasant dance.
Oh, but
That was, I don't know where she got it from.
but that was 56. Right?
56.
Well, she,
But you were asking about both performances? Yeah.
Well, the Zebra was 58.
But Zebra was 58.
Right.
And it was Miss Krask that suggested that I teach them patineur.
Uh-huh.
Also, she suggested that I taught the Highland Fling for the first horrible album.
Well,
Why would we do a Highland Fling? I don't know. It was nothing else to do, I guess.
well, we didn't have anything. And
We did the Black Bottom.
Yeah. we
Tex and I did the
that.
Black Bottom with no music.
No music.
Yeah, a gut buster of a Charleston. I mean, it really was. You can't imagine. I mean, if you do 3 choruses of a really athletic Charleston, yeah, it takes it out again.
Well, we did it in a movie. I don't even remember what the movie was.
Best things in life are fake.
Right. So we did know that. But other than that, we had not danced together.
No.
You did some. Oh no, Skipper and you were 58.
Well, that was 58, yeah. That's when you refused to do it with us.
I did.
Yeah. We were going to have
You
a
were
trio,
doing the Spanish
but
dance.
you pulled out. You
Yeah.
didn't want to do it.
No, I was smarter. I've been learning about Spanish dancing,
That wasn't Spanish.
wasn't it?
Well, Skipper and I did one dance. We did a Sevillana.
Right.
Yeah, but then we did a whole 20 suite, where you don't remember that?
No.
And we did the Black Bottom again at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, with music this time. And we did Raccoon Coats and When My Baby Walks Down the Street and The Vamp. And,
All of that?
Yeah, we did all of that. The 20s suite. And you don't remember that?
No, I think I was out of it.
Yeah, but you refused to participate, that's true.
No, I was only in the one thing, I think.
Partner?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Viola and Peter did,
Love
Paul,
Paul
what was
Taylor's
it called?
Love
May
Apple.
Apple, yeah,
May Apple?
May Apple.
And when you weren't performing, were you backstage, or could you watch Baba watching the
Oh,
other
no, we were
dancers?
outside.
So you couldn't see Baba watching
Oh.
the other
No.
And Jean, of course, did 2 of his numbers.
Yeah.
They were wonderful.
Yeah.
And people at least considered one of them spiritual. And it was a marvelous number. He was a fantastic dancer, absolutely unique. I mean, you couldn't, if Jean did a movement, you did a movement, it was nothing like the way Jean, you couldn't do it. Because it was him. I was over here and you were over here. Remember that?
Mhm.
So he was kind of marvelous. And, but you never had an audience like Baba, ever. And don't ask me how, but it was the most incredible thing. And it wasn't just the fact that, you know, he acted like it was the greatest thing that ever hit any stage, no matter what. It wasn't just that. I mean, we weren't that dumb, were we?
No.
It was just something, and also, if you pleased Baba, I mean, let me tell you, that was something great. If you felt you had done something that pleased him, don't you think?
Oh, yes, that was absolutely the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, because I remember thinking that after I walked into the sea and came out again, that this was the whole reason I danced in the first place, and I wasn't going to dance anymore after that.
Oh.
But then we got to the airport, remember, and he spoke to each of us in turn and wanted to know what we were going to do later.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
We were sitting there in the waiting room.
Yes.
And he asked each of us what we were going to do now, and he came and I said I was going to help Agnes DeMille on her new book, which was a dance history book.
Yeah.
And he looked very displeased.
Really?
And he said, "You should go on dancing."
Wow.
But I was already kind of past that age. I was already 30-something, I guess.
What,
You have
56?
to count it up.
What,
But,
56?
you know,
56, you think?
yeah, you could figure it out.
31. You're 31.
31. Well, that's getting old for a dancer.
Not 56.
One's opportunities are getting rather limited at that point. But so I did a few more things after that because I figured that was in order. But how many jobs can you get, you know?
Yeah.
But then I went teaching, and I figured that was almost the same thing. Because you dance when you teach.
Yeah.
So I hope it was. Too late now, right?
Except if you have to make a choice, I can tell you which one I would take.
Well, one doesn't always have a choice.
Now, all three of you were in India in '62, Baba?
I wasn't
Oh. Now, when did you see Baba again?
56.
Okay.
I saw him, because I remember he was at the Delmonico for quite a few days.
4, I think.
And I would go up every day. And then I met him there, and my husband met him there. And
Who was an Episcopal priest?
and
My husband.
at that time I was listening to all of this. I was very pregnant a lot of this time. I couldn't do much dancing. But I was carrying Wyatt at that time.
So
Viola.
Yes, yeah. That was, I would just go up every day and just sort of hang out and then,
We all did,
and,
yeah.
and it was very amazing and wonderful. In fact, I met him also, I think, in Ivan Ducey's. I mean, no, maybe that was in the summer after he'd been to Myrtle Beach. I think he came to New York.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, when are you talking about, 56?
Maybe it was 56.
Well, because we went from New York to Myrtle Beach.
Right.
We came the other way around. Because I went with, and Bunty went with me. And it was after New York that we met to Myrtle Beach.
No, this was, I think, in 52. And
Oh, well,
I met
okay.
him at Ivy Ducey's, and Swask arranged it.
Oh, yes.
And because I remember Tommy Mullen. What?
After he'd had the accident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw him and you saw him
Yeah.
after the accident. You
Right.
didn't.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't.
That was really a remarkable experience for me at the time. And then, again, as I say, meeting him with Peter. But that was very different because my husband, with me it's a much sort of long kind of progression, but he met Baba, and Baba was sitting Eretz and Adi were standing in black suits like this, and he actually felt that they were like the mafioso, and he turned completely away from them for many, many, many years. And it was only 15, 20 years later, Miss Christ would come see us, and she and I would talk about Robert Fritz. She had such an amazing gift of never pushing anybody. And one day, I guess in the 70s, Peter came to me and he said, "I wish to speak now to Miss Christ himself." And then he began to see her, and she would tell him about Ronald. And he was very, he was a very smart man, and he was trained in theology. And I remember finally in the late 80s, we went to India. And I remember I was a little frightened because I was afraid it would turn him further against it, being in India. And he said to me, I remember when we did Adi, he said to me, I remember he had this quizzical look on his face, and he said, "I didn't realize there was a liturgy." But then he told me later that when he walked up the hill, he heard just rising up in him that marvelous hymn. It's a Christian hymn, Christ is risen again. And it was that 2 or 3 weeks there was an amazing time. He was a man of very careful man in terms of trying to face reality, and he loved God. But he also had many, I thought, very good questions. But we went another time, he preached about it afterwards. We went up to Seclusion Hill, and our daughter Susan had come, and there was a young Indian girl and a few other people. And when we went up there, the winds were terrible, and this little Indian girl's hat blew over the side. And the rest of us decided to go down the hill, and Peter wanted to stay. He said he just wanted to stay. And this is actually, this is what he said, that he decided to go over and you know how Seclusion Hill is? If you look down, he said he could see shepherds, those boys, just like this big. But he went over the side of the hill to get the hat. And he went down, and he had on sandals, and he lost his footing, and he was in absolute terror. And he said that someone had told him, how the people talk, that if you're ever in danger, call on Baba. And he said he did. And he said suddenly every muscle relaxed, and he gripped, and he was able to get back up to the hill, up to the top, and he came down. It was an amazing visit. And he had a lot of humor too. And one time we were in Meru, not Meru, but Nehru. Yeah. And we were having tea. And Meru asked him if he believed Baba was God. And he said, "I don't know." And the lights went out. And everybody, he loved it, and Meru loved it. But that whole experience for him was a wonderful experience. And it was a great gift. But Miss Krask, it was years and years, and he was much bolder than I, although I'd known her all those years. When he went to Myrtle Beach, he went to her, he arranged to he told her he was coming at this and this and this day. And I was shocked, and everyone else was. But she was so gracious. She saw him, and it was just wonderful.
When you'd have many days in a row to see Baba, with other people around, were those times just a sort of clear sort of honeymoon with Baba, or was it full of conflict? Should I get closer? Should I get further away? Being upset with other people? Wishing Baba would look at you more or not? Or was there anything like that, or was it just this kind of smooth?
Oh, there was nothing like that. No jealousy or anything like that. Are you kidding? Are you nuts? I mean, it's just a miracle any of us survived. And it was different for everybody. I mean, I was lucky. Peter suffered a lot.
Yeah.
Remember? He, and I never knew exactly what, and Donald says he did as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't. I was lucky.
I was jealous of you.
Huh?
I was jealous of you.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Why?
yeah. Because you got to make those things for Baba. That's
Oh, okay. That's,
What thing?
I don't blame you. I would be jealous too.
what thing?
Huh?
What thing?
You made jackets
Oh,
and
that's right.
sandals.
Oh, that's right.
That's why I knitted Baba's socks, which she...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At the movie theater, right?
No, we went to an ice show,
Oh.
and he was leaving the next day, I think, and I was
Uh-huh.
trying to finish these socks. So I kept on knitting and knitting and knitting, and I came out, and they were like...
Weren't you watching Baba instead
Well,
of?
mostly you did. When you went to a show with Baba, you watched Baba more than the show. But he always sat there with something over his head, like a sheet, right? Or a blanket.
I didn't go.
You didn't go?
I asked permission.
Oh, you were busy making
I
the
had to
fun.
finish the coat, yeah.
What would he put over his head?
Something like a sheet
He
or a
would
blanket or
cover his
something.
head. I was told about it.
But you know, I had a question about 56.
Yeah.
I just thought of it the other day. I saw an ad for Most Happy Fella.
Yeah.
Didn't we go and see that?
Yes, and Baba did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd forgotten all about that.
Oh. Well,
don't
I
remember.
thought it was a terrible choice of shows.
Well, I'm sure they picked it for the title.
It never occurred to me.
No, I figured that when we went to that restaurant in LA, that they picked that for the title.
Oh,
the Garden of Allah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was a bad experience.
Oh,
Do you want to hear about
Yeah.
that? Yeah. Tell the bad experience.
oh, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, thank you very much.
It concerns you more than me.
Well, it does. But anyway, that was the Garden of Allah. Okay. A group of people arranged, well, the Sufis arranged all of the travel and everything, gratefully, in 1956. And they arranged our hotels and everything. And one of the things that they arranged was a dinner at the Garden of Allah, which is a notorious hotel from the 20s because it covered a lot of territory and there were little bungalows. So I guess you get the picture. And I know of 2 or 3 big Hollywood scandals that happened at the Garden of Allah. But obviously the Sufis didn't know that, or whatever. But anyway, that 56 cost us a lot of money because we had, and Baba said we couldn't borrow the money, and you had to have it because we had to fly from New York to Myrtle Beach, from Myrtle Beach to Washington, from Washington to Los Angeles. Los Angeles, well, then we drove to Maryland, came back. And Los Angeles to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco back to New York. So it was a lot of money. And you had hotels in a couple of places. And so it happened. Peter and I didn't discuss it, but neither of us, we decided, well, and it was $15 at the Garden of Allah. I remember that, which was like, we'll say today it was about $65 or $70. Well, I don't usually eat for that kind of money. And so I decided, well, I'll skip the, that. And this was before Baba came, of course. And because once you met Baba, everything changed, let me tell you, your whole attitude. And, so I didn't make arrangements. I didn't put my name in or send in the money. And Peter didn't either. And, but there was no deadline. They didn't give us that if you don't have your money in by such and such a date, you can't come. They didn't do that. So when we got to Los Angeles, we go. Peter and I went together. And we got to the door, and they said, would you mind stepping aside? So, well, we were used to that. You know, it was the Sufis after all. And so we waited, and I remember this door kept swinging back and forth. People kept coming in, and they were checked off, and this and that, and this door swing. And Peter and I just stood there for quite some time. And finally, the guy at the door went in. And there were Peter and I standing. So we said, well, I guess we go in now. So we went in, and it was a very long room. And the Baba's table, and they say it's a long room this way. And Baba's table was on a dais, higher. And all the other tables, I think there were 2 rows, weren't there?
There were a lot, I don't remember.
Going lengthwise, that way. Well, and everybody had a place card. So we got the picture right away that, Baba and the Mandali, with Erich and Adi and so forth and so on, were sitting on the dais. And Ivy Deuce and Elizabeth and Kitty and so forth and so on were sitting at the main table with Baba. And so Peter and I very, very courteously, and we crept along the wall, looking to see if there was a place card.